It's my pleasure to kick off the last portion of today, which is going to be a bit of a fireside with Jay Clayton. As folks know, Jay is the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. He assumed the role in August 2025, having served as interim U.S. Attorney beginning back in April. And since taking office, he's prioritized the safety and interest of New Yorkers and the millions who visit the city and the region each year. Before this, he was chairman of the United States Securities and Exchange Commission from May of 2017 to December of 2020. During that tenure, the SEC prioritized the protection of retail investors and worked to expand their access to invest opportunities. Following his tenure at the SEC,
we can skip most of this.
I'm gonna just say he served as, to round out the experience, served as chairman of the Apollo Global Management and returned to Sullivan and Cromwell as a senior policy advisor. He also served on the board of the American Express Company and held other advisory positions, and so he brings lots of perspective to his new job.
I've been on the receiving end of
He's been on the receiving end of the government and all that goes with it, and brings really a lot of great perspective to the role. I certainly saw it when you were chairman of the SEC, and we see it now that you're U.S. Attorney.
I'm supposed to say best enforcement director ever?
I mean, they know, but you can say it. But I'm going to start where by sort of teeing off of one of the points I made, which is that you've prioritized, in this role as U.S. Attorney, you've prioritized the safety of New Yorkers, the safety of those who visit the city every year. I've heard you say it publicly, and kudos to your office for your takedown just last week of, I think it was 19 alleged drug dealers and cleanup in and around Washington Square Park, which is a fantastic thing for New York City and all of us who visit and live here. So thank you for that. Talk to us just a little bit about that, about your priorities and about how you think about sort of some of the key things you're focused on in this job.
Sure. Great to be here. The views I express are my own.
Oh boy, haven't heard you say that in a while.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, how did we come to the priorities in the office? I think it's a lens and then input. The lens is, we have very limited resources in the Southern District of New York, given the size of what we're asked to do, both what I would say geographically, but also beyond our jurisdiction, including, I think, a responsibility for drug interdiction, at least around the hemisphere, if not around the globe. Said, what's the lens? What would New Yorkers want us to spend those resources on? What would a New York, however you define a New York family, how would they want us, people who have been here and are going to stay here, how would they want us to spend our time and our money? And then with that lens, ask the people in the office who've been there, what do you think will have the most impact for what these people want? And so that's caused us to redirect some resources. I want to say this appropriately, which is violent criminals with guns. Get them off New York City streets. I think people would be surprised, maybe not this crowd, but your average New Yorker would be surprised to know that the way state law works today, and bail reform, if we want to call it reform, the judge is not allowed to take into consideration the safety of the public, the risk to the public, when deciding whether to make a detention decision or not, which is kind of amazing, which actually means that people who commit gun crimes get released all the time. So we need to redirect federal resources in that direction.
That's really something. I mean, that's something, and I think we all appreciate the focus on this. I mean, one of the things that I've heard people talk about, right, is how's Jay going to approach this job? How's he going to lead? And I don't know, you can answer that, but I'll say my own view, and what I've said to people is, look at how he led the SEC. right? Results-oriented, figure out what are our goals. You're talking about that now. What are our goals? What are our priorities? And my own experience with you is that you surround yourself. This isn't just a shout out to me. I'm just saying for everybody. You surround yourself with good people, right? You find competent people who are good at their job, and then you empower them to go out and do the job. You're not a micromanager. And so is that how you're thinking about this job? How do you, this is a little bit different.
Yeah, I think in large part, I hope that I do this. I ask people when they bring cases to me or when I suggest things, and they say, well, what objective are you driving for? And,
Yeah.
you know, how you get there is really your choice. You're the experienced person, you're the day-to-day person. You know, you can ask me, like, you know, will shock you to know that I weigh in on
You have a view.
on securities matters.
Really?
I might have an idea
Really?
on how they work, but no, I think that's the right way to do it. But it is a very objective-oriented approach. You know, hopefully there are fewer people who are going to shoot people on New York City streets. Fentanyl is terrible. I mean, there were 3,000 odd deaths in New York City from fentanyl
It's outrageous.
for the last year that we have reliable stats. It touches everybody. We should do what we can to get it off the streets. The Washington Square takedown, you know, everybody's innocent, presumed innocent, but should they be found guilty of the charges, they're facing 20-year mandatory minimums.
Yeah, yeah.
They will, now, if
Yeah.
that happens, they will not be dealing drugs again.
Yep, yep. I mean, what does, it sort of tees into my next question, which is, what do you think success looks like? Not just on this issue, but in part on this issue. But how do you measure success?
Do the streets feel safer? That's a big one.
Yeah,
So that's the local one, and that's guns and drugs. How do you measure success, I think, sticking with drugs more internationally? I think when you explain this to New Yorkers, drug trafficking in the United States is as sophisticated a production, transportation, and distribution enterprise as Costco or Walmart or Target. That's how sophisticated the cartels and the narco states who enable them are. That's a huge problem. You know, 100,000, 90,000 people a year across the country that we know have died from overdoses. That's up, it's double from pre-pandemic levels. Maybe it's coming down a little bit now because of Narcan, but that's kind of a crazy thing to have in your society. And a lot of it is enabled by nation states. You know, and it's not just Venezuela, where we have, you know, pending indictment against Maduro. There are other nation states that are actively participating in distributing fentanyl into the United States. And I think, you know, China is turning a blind eye, at best, a blind eye to precursor chemicals being distributed in the United States and near to our borders to allow fentanyl into the U.S. That's a problem.
that is a problem.
And success
Yeah.
is bankrupting them.
Yeah.
No, that's, you know.
Is that a real, is that, you think?
I'm going to use every tool I have.
Yep.
And the white-collar folks here, look, our banking system is the jewel of the world, but the amount of money involved, the need to distribute it, to run an operation that's like a Costco or like, means it's touching the banking system somewhere. People need to be more vigilant in rooting out the financial support of terrorism and cocaine, fentanyl distribution. They
Yeah.
just do.
Yep, yep. Well, that's a great pivot to the white-collar space, which I think is what this group really probably wants to hear a little bit about.
It pays the bills, right?
It pays the bills, and not that they have anything to worry about. So speaking of paying the bills, hopefully for all the folks here, the spigot's not off. I will say when we went to the SEC, there was a lot of
well, amusing chatter that,
Yes, there was.
that enforcement had come to an end.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
But look,
kind of wasn't the case,
kind
was
of
it?
wasn't the case. Anybody who thinks you're going to be soft on crime in the white collar space has got another thing
It's
coming, I think.
it's a privilege to operate in our markets. Don't abuse it.
Yep.
Or we're coming after you.
It's a pretty simple message.
Yeah.
I think you should get shirts made with
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So look, you're the chief of your criminal division.
And don't
Amanda-
be cute.
Don't be, okay. See, that's harder, right? It's easy to not break the law. It's a little harder to not be cute.
Cute's bad.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it criminal? Cute?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly can make me look harder.
Fair, fair enough. And look, it comes back to the perspective we talked about in the beginning. You know the space better than the average person. And so I suspect your own gut reaction to things matters in this space more than others.
And there are things that I believe that I don't know if others believe, but,
Yeah.
but I think cooperation is extremely important. Said another way, choosing a path other than cooperation, particularly if we're going to handle cooperation in what I think is a very constructive way, should be a mistake. But what I mean by that is we at the department, we at the Southern District of New York, have an obligation to establish a material delta for the company between cooperating and not cooperating. It can't be the case that you're sitting in the boardroom and your lawyer comes in and says, they expect you to cooperate, you should cooperate, but you're not going to get anything for it.
Yes.
That's not the way it should work. The way it should work is you have an opportunity to cooperate. They're interested in individual accountability. If you cooperate early, fully cooperate, you are unlikely to face criminal charges. It may be an NPA, it may be a DPA, whatever conditionality you put around that. But that has to be part of the equation, I think.
First of all, I couldn't agree more.
It's the way we approached it at the SEC.
It is. I couldn't agree more. I mean, let me unpack that a little bit because folks are going to really care about it. 99 out of 100 companies are going to say they cooperate and that they cooperate well. And I think probably most of the time that's true. I really do. Now, people can have different views on, oh, you should have waived privilege, or, oh, you should have told me what all your interviewees said or shared your interview memos. There can be degrees. The hardest question to solve for is whether to self-report. That is the hardest question to solve for. And look, when something's really bad and really criminal, it's an easy decision. The gray area, not knowing everything, not knowing whether maybe I think this probably isn't a criminal violation, but I don't know that the prosecutors are going to see it the same way. That's the hard area. And I would say in the last several years, there has been a real reluctance in the gray area as defense lawyers to lean in on raising your hand because there was a sense that once you get into the net, you're never getting out of the net.
Yeah, it's sort of a dynamic relationship that I think we have to break, because if that's the attitude, then the sense of the prosecutor is, you wouldn't have reported this if you didn't think it was a crime. And it's kind of, it kind of ratchets to a non-cooperative place, right?
Yes.
And I think that we need to reestablish that, okay, just because someone calls you up and says, I'm reporting this to you, doesn't necessarily mean you have to bring charges. And that also goes to regulatory action, particularly in the financial institution space. We've gotten to the point where the financial regulators, any call to them results in a violation.
That is where we have been.
That is where and that's not right. That's not.
No, that's not right. I couldn't agree more. I mean, and not just from where I sit now.
And that's
right?
not, that's not soft on crime.
That's not soft on crime.
That's having a healthy relationship with your regulator.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's also, look.
I just said, if you're laundering money, you're in big trouble.
That's going to be a problem.
Big
You
trouble.
can't do that.
Yes.
Big. But to your point earlier, this is a resource.
But
game.
if you
This is a
file,
resource
but if you
game.
file too many SARs, no, I'm just kidding.
not even touching that. But it's a resource game, like you said, right? That's not soft on crime. I know. That's every time you're doing this thing, you're not doing this thing. And so there's a real incentive, there should be real incentive for the industry to self-report, but for the government to treat it appropriately.
Correct.
So how do you think about that self-reporting? I mean, just to unpack it a little bit more.
But like you said, though, if you self-report early before, get ahead of it. If there's and are candid about the possibility or the probability of individual criminality, the corporation should get the benefit of a deferred or non-prosecution agreement. That's my view.
So still some sort of a resolution, you think? Maybe, maybe not, depending on...
Well, yeah, look, I say that, and I should have made a temporal point. Sitting on the board of directors of a company, what you really want is certainty as quickly as possible.
Yes.
So if up front you're saying, subject to your continued cooperation, we're not going to bring charges.
Yeah.
That's probably best for everybody, including shareholders.
Absolutely.
Because shareholders now know if my management team's behaving.
Yes.
My board of directors is, looking at this. There was an issue, but its impact on the company is over.
Certainty is what shareholders care the most about.
And I think we've done a bad job of thinking about time as a variable in those equations. I always said to people at the SEC, I said, look, if I get somebody $100 back tomorrow, that is a whole lot better than $400 in 5 years. Because for a retail investor, it's gone. Get people their money back as quickly as possible.
No, it's a great point, and certainty and getting stuff done quickly really is important, not just for shareholders, but investors, the market, for everybody. Mm-hmm. So in, just to sort of underscore the point about the office is not going to be soft on crime, in the white collar space specifically.
I think you've seen we're moving in the...
I was just going to say that. Well, your chief of your criminal division, Amanda Hull, was recently quoted as saying, there is not a retreat from the white collar space. And what she said was, by the end of this year, we will have charged as many in the white collar, our securities fraud unit will have charged as many cases as all of 2023 and 2024 combined.
I think that's roughly correct. And they're also in areas where I think we need to pay attention. And I should give my predecessors some credit for some of these investigations were started.
Sure.
And of course, and they started focusing on the pre-IPO space, the private credit space.
Well, you just had a big win in the pre-IPO space. You got a verdict this week.
Mm-hmm. It was good. It was good. Like being, in the pre-IPO space is not a license to commit fraud. It's the securities laws still apply, right? And they're still victims. And these factoring cases, the 777 indictment, we're seeing other cases in the area where, collateral may have been pledged twice.
I was going to say, is this really private credit? Is this?
I think the private credit label is thrown around too much. This is a space within private credit. The securitization space in particular seems to have a few bad actors.
Seems to be some things.
And we should be cleaning it up quickly.
Mm-hmm. Other previews, other things, issues in this space?
I think the manipulation, and I'm saying this because I'm saying it bothers me. Mm-hmm. I don't know to what level it should bother me, but I'm looking at it. The manipulation in small cap stocks, particularly Chinese small cap stocks, continues to come up as something that doesn't make, as I look across that landscape, it continues to not make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, Chairman Atkins has been talking about that too a lot, and so I'm not surprised that you all seem aligned on this.
Just remember, as I said when we were at the SEC, for most of those companies, it is not possible to bring the management to justice if they commit a crime.
And you're not going to be able to get people's money back. And
Or
you're
their
not
money,
gonna...
and so therefore, you know, if the incentives are, if criminal punishment deters bad behavior, the fact that they're outside of criminal punishment, they don't have as much deterrence.
Not quite the same.
And, you know, that hasn't changed.
Yeah. And so how do you think about what you all can do in that space?
Well, who is in the facilitation chain? And when we were at the SEC, a great deal of insider trading that was left on our markets was taking place through omnibus accounts located offshore. We shut that down. I did not realize that that would cause people to use omnibus accounts for rather than over-the-counter trading, they would actually use it for lit on-exchange trading. I find that problematic. I mean, I've talked to Chairman Atkins about it.
Yeah.
I think they're looking at it.
Yeah.
But do you guys know what offshore omnibus accounts are? It basically, if a U.S. person trades, it's pretty easy for the SEC to find out actually who was behind the trading. If you trade through an offshore omnibus account, it's the street name of the account, and it's very difficult to get who the underlying traders are. That, to me, is problematic, that you have more scrutiny over who's trading from inside the United States than you do from outside the United States on our markets. We fixed it in the over-counter market. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be fixed across the board.
Yeah. Yep. Declinations. Is that an area, you know, historically one of the challenges, and it sort of dovetails with our conversation about self-reporting and cooperation, maybe related, maybe not, maybe it's on the substance, maybe it's because of cooperation. When you make decisions to decline, which every U.S. Attorney's Office does on any number of cases, historically one of the frustrations in the industry has been the lack of certainty around that. Investigation just kind of goes away, or folks are told we're done, but nothing official, whereas the SEC has kind of a closure process that works most of the time.
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
I think the suite of matters where a declination letter is appropriate is much larger than we have been utilizing.
And
I think we've been giving them since.
Actual letters on paper.
Yeah, we have been giving them, and I expect we will continue to give them.
I think that's great.
Look, there are circumstances where there may be related matters, there may be other things where, you know, your typical declination letter is not appropriate.
Yeah.
But I think those are more outliers than the norm. And I think people should expect to see them.
That's great. What about, I'm sort of zipping around a little bit, but just thinking about sort of the interaction and interplay with the SEC, again, on case decisions, how do you think about collateral consequences, right? Particularly financial institutions.
It's actually a great question. So
We've spent a lot of time talking about
No, but I think there's a theme. It's like, okay, try and come to a resolution quickly with the company up front, because that's in everybody's interest. If somebody's is no longer the subject of an investigation, let them know so they can get on with their life, and so their shareholders can get on with their lives. One of the problems in doing that has been the uncertainty created by collateral consequences and the bureaucracy that goes into addressing those collateral consequences. So, you know, when we were at the SEC, I have no idea how, I actually do have an idea, but it's not worth discussing, how settlements and waivers, somebody decided they'd go through the kabuki theater of claiming they weren't related.
Yep.
It's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Did you ever hear me say that?
I've heard you say it about 150 times, but yeah. You've told me to fix it.
We fixed it. It leads to better settlements for harmed investors, quicker settlements for harmed investors, better protection for the marketplace going forward, and again, shrinking the time to resolution, which is most important. But there are collateral consequences that go outside of a single entity like the SEC, including Department of Labor disqualifications, HHS, all sorts of
Those
things.
are triggered by criminal resolutions.
Correct. And what we ought to have is a process, if those agencies are amenable, for bringing them to the table at the time you reach a resolution.
Yes.
Yes. I don't.
Who can do that?
It's doable.
It's doable.
It's doable. But I hate hearing, hey, Jay, we can't resolve with you because we don't know what XYZ agency is going to do. I'm like, well, okay, well, let's get XYZ agency to the table and we'll figure out what they're going to do, and you can decide whether you want to resolve or you want to go to trial. But that sort of like, oh, let's spend 6 months speculating about what the Department of Labor is going to do. That's a waste of everybody's time and money. So we ought to.
This is how government should operate.
Yeah, and here's the thing about government. If you're trying to get something done like this, let me tell you the worst way to do it. The head of one agency says, I have an idea. And she says, check on this and talk to the other agency. It goes down the chain, then it goes over, and then it comes up to the head of the other agency, let's say agency A, agency B. That takes like a month. Then the response goes, and it takes like a month. They should just get together, decide a protocol for resolving these kinds of things, and move on. That's how it should work.
That is how it should work. Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate that view. Hey, let me ask you. There are a lot of things that are challenges to the job. What about social media and any observations there?
Yeah, you could ask me. We put that in the category of surprises in the job.
Yeah.
So, and this is maybe less of a white collar issue and more of other areas. We have a lot of rules around jury taint. Don't watch television. Try not to read the papers. That have worked pretty well for a long time. I think my quick observation is they're completely outdated. No one reads the paper. People don't watch TV. They pull this thing out and they, use whatever their favorite social media apps are. And it's where, we all know it's where opinions are shaped. And if you look at the rules around media exposure, the use of media and the like, they don't take account of that change. And that's a substantial change. And I think that the bar and the courts need to look at this, because our rules around jury influence are outdated. And I don't want to sequester juries.
No. Does New York still? Does New York?
Nobody wants to do that. So we got to figure that. At least we have to think about that issue consciously.
That's not a surprise. I mean, that's sort of surprising that it's only just now really bubbling up in some ways, particularly with the algorithms and everything else. You search one thing and then your feed is inundated with the thing you've.
Yes.
Yes.
And, I think it should, and let me say that this works both ways. If I am a defendant, I'm quite nervous that I might be accused of a crime where social media goes crazy. It'd be quite difficult for people not to have formed an impression based on their favorite poster.
We saw that at the SEC too.
Yes. And also if I'm on the other side of it, which is, I'm a prosecutor, I hope that there aren't people out there kind of pushing a narrative that, it's a selective prosecution,
right,
or it's, somehow a law that should be jury nullified. But both, Depending on the context, you might
Sure.
have one view or another as to how much you want to police this.
That's right.
But it's something we need to think about.
That's right, that's right. I'll start the wrap up.
Yeah, no, we can do questions if you want.
All right, good, thank you. How do you work with the SEC?
I think, I hope it's a good relationship. I think, Paul and I know each other well.
Yeah.
I know the process.
Yes.
We have
That's a huge advantage for your office.
we have
I
an exchange
assume.
we have an exchange program going with the SEC.
Yeah.
I think there are areas where we can work even better with the SEC. I think DERA, the economists at the SEC, are underutilized in kind of assessing cases early, what damage calculations should look like, kind of sizing the bread box. We can leverage some of that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
That's
everybody's would
actually
be
a
good
great
with that.
idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
and DERA would probably love that.
yeah, they're good at that.
They're good at it.
Yeah.
They are.
They
are.
kind of like that.
They do.
Yeah.
This is what they do.
That's what they do. They're good at trading. Like they're good.
Yes, they are.
They're good at unpacking
Trading
and
yeah.
and kind of debunking.
Statistical analyses and all
Yeah.
those things, yeah.
They can either confirm or debunk
Confirm or debunk.
claims of
arguments.
claims of manipulation.
Absolutely.
They're pretty good at that.
Absolutely. Any advice for the, corporate lawyers in the crowd?
Don't be cute.
We've come full circle.
No, I think let's try to be constructive on what cooperation can really do for everybody involved. I mean, if your client is the company, going down a very constructive cooperation path, not just with the DOJ, but also with the other regulators. I think that there is a view across the regulatory community that kind of relationship is what's best for the people who matter, which are shareholders, customers, clients of these companies.
Yep, that's great advice. So
I think the shareholder, the customer, it gets forgotten.
absolutely, by everyone. I mean, that really does have to be the focus. It is certainly management's focus. It really is management's focus.
Good management.
Yes.
Some
good
management worries about themselves.
Yeah, 100%. But good management, that is their focus. So you've been generous with your time, and you've indicated some willingness to take Q&A. Anything from this? Are there questions on
Not
that
on
thing?
this
Am I supposed to look at that then?
Not yet.
Questions?
All right.
No? Wow.
I know. There are probably a lot of people watching online who would like to ask questions, but, you're not in the room.
All right.
All right, well, thank you.
You're done?
Anything else you want?
This is the easiest
Let me
you've been
give
on
you-
me in years.
It is, actually. I know it is. We could do an open mic
No.
night. Is there anything else you want to say?
Yes. I talked about what New Yorkers would want us to do. You are some of the most informed New Yorkers on what we can do. Don't be shy. If you have views on how we should use our resources and how we should go about our business, I want to hear it. That is not a, throwaway. It is extremely helpful to hear from people who know how the system works, how it could work better for the people of New York.
That's great. And I promise you he means it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap. Many thanks to Jay for his remarks, but also for giving us a little extra time in the morning. We're not back tomorrow at day 3 until 9:20 because Jay joined us this afternoon. So thank you for that. We'll see you tomorrow for government enforcement, major cases, and a bunch of other interesting panels tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.
Tomorrow's the interesting day.
Yes.